Hi, I'm Joe Roth. At New Jersey Sharing Network, we're committed to saving and enhancing people's lives through organ and tissue donation and informing people about our life-saving mission. That's why we're proud to support programming produced by the CAUCUS Educational Corporation and their partners in public television.
Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Investors Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Johnson & Johnson, New Jersey Resources, New Jersey Sharing Network, dedicated to saving lives through organ and tissue donation, Fedway Associates, and by Gary's Wine and Marketplace, creating an individual shopping experience for every guest. Promotional support provided by New Jersey Family Magazine and njfamily.com. And by New Jersey Monthly, the magazine of the Garden State, available at newsstands.
This is One-on-One. I'm an equal American just like you are.
The jobs of tomorrow are not the jobs of yesterday.
Look at this. You got this?
Here it is, man. Look at that.
Life without dance is boring.
When you first heard that they were doing Charlie Rose and Gayle King, didn't you go, what?
Do you enjoy talking politics?
No. People call me because they feel nobody's paying attention.
Our culture, I don't think, has ever been tested the way it's being tested right now.
Such a good question. High five.
Welcome to One-on-One. I'm Steve Adubato. It is our pleasure for the first time to welcome a very special guest. He is Azzan Yadin-Israel, professor in the Department of Jewish Studies and Classics at Rutgers University, and the author of The Grace of God and the Grace of Man, the Theologies of Bruce Springsteen. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing great. Listen, I'm a Bruce. I should not say this. I hate to say that everyone in Jersey loves him. That's not true. Many of us do. But the Theologies of Bruce Springsteen set the premise for this.
Well, I mean, the basic idea of the book is that Springsteen has, throughout his career, dealt with issues and used language that is drawn from theological sources, even though he hasn't used them in traditional ways. So he uses the language of religion and the imagery of religion and deals with topics that can be seen in some sense as religious, but he doesn't do it in traditional religious ways.
For example, because I'm thinking of Rosalita right now and it's not hitting me.
No. It's not in Rosalita, and you won't find Rosalita in the book either.
Sorry about that. That's where my mind went.
That's a great point in a way, because the idea of the book is not that every song should be stuffed into this rubric.
Give us one.
Well, I mean, basically, early on in his career, he's writing about some of the songs from Greetings, even earlier, even in Greetings.
Greetings from Asbury Park.
Yeah, you have songs like "It's Hard to Be a Saint in the City." In that song, you actually have the hero of the song, the singer, has a temptation scene with the devil. The devil tries to tempt him. He flees into the subways in New York, which is kind of depicted as a kind of hell. And this is all taken from Jesus' temptation scene, Matthew 4. And it's a very interesting reinterpretation of that, because at the end of Jesus' temptation scene, the angels minister to him. He's kind of transformed and he's overcome this temptation. Whereas in the song, Springsteen's hero comes back up from the subway, he manages to escape, and nothing changes. It's like he's gone through this, what should be a transformational religious experience, and he's right back where he started, because it's hard to be a saint in the city. That's what the song is telling us. So even very early on, Springsteen is working in this very interesting way where he's drawing on imagery from the Bible and so forth, but reworking, rethinking.
Let me ask you this. I told you I was reading the Springsteen book right now, the autobiography.
Yeah, the autobiography,
right?
Born to Run.
Here's my question. And I'm trying to understand Bruce's connection to Judaism, right? His connection to religion, his connection to spirituality, his connection to whatever, right? And here's my question.
Yeah.
To what degree, because his background.
Yeah.
Explain that to us from a religious point of view.
I mean, first of all, his background is Catholic. So,
right, it's Catholic. Yours is
I mean, I am Jewish and I am a professor of Jewish studies, but what I focus on is on later interpretations of Scripture, which could be Jewish and could be...
It could be a case. I'm Catholic, he's Catholic,
right.
You're Jewish, and you're Jewish. I'm sitting there asking myself,
right.
Do you interpret it in any way? And loaded question, I know, do you think Bruce was attempting while writing, and you say he's a serious poet, do you think he was attempting to go deep into theology while he was doing this at 24 years old?
Right. All right, so there are a few questions there.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to make a lot of sense of that.
I'll try to, so first of all, for me, these are religious texts. In other words, he's interpreting Scripture, he's interpreting, whether he is Catholic or, and I'm Jewish, that wouldn't really play into it. Yeah, it's irrelevant because I'm just trying to understand the text in those terms. And in his own terms. So a lot of the book, for example, a song like Adam Raised the Cain, all right? So in Adam Raised the Cain, what I argue is that Springsteen is doing two things. One is he's using the story of Genesis and kind of drawing on the tension within the Adam and Eve and Cain and Abel stories. Right. But he's also, and this is a less obvious or less apparent part, he's also reworking the idea of original sin. The song opens with a baptism scene. In the summer that I was baptized, my father held me by his side. And throughout the song, he inserts statements like, you inherit the sins, you inherit the pain, which talk about of the father. You're born into the world, carrying someone else's sins. This, in other words, the idea of original sin, the baptism, which is the sacrament that tries to wash away original sin, and then these statements about being born into a state of sin. However, it's not the traditional original sin. It's not, the sexual original sin. It's the sin of what the Father has done to the Son. In other words, that's why the sacrament doesn't work in this case, and that's why. So here, for example, I mean, yes, I'm Jewish and my training is in rabbinic literature, but most of that part, I'm quoting Augustine, and discussing Augustine's theory of original sin, because that's what's relevant. That's what's relevant to this song, and that's where that song is going. Yeah, a lot of this stuff speaks to me. A lot of it speaks to me.
Well, let me ask you this. How much of this... It's interesting, because one of the things that you've said is that because Springsteen is a popular artist, appreciated by so many, that he is not taken seriously as, not just as a theologian, but as a serious poet. Yeah. That's a mistake, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's a very serious mistake. I don't think it's just that he's popular. I think that...
excuse me, is that also that, sorry for interrupting, is it also that some of his songs are so Jersey Shore-centric, and that under the, under the boardwalk, and you're trying, and Madame Marie, so it's like, can't be serious.
I think that's a big part of it. I think a big part of it is that, I mean, he also has a lot of, he embraces a kind of blue-collar identity.
Yes.
He didn't go to college or went very briefly to college. He plays to these huge packed football stadiums.
Yes.
So
it could be serious.
People think, blue collar, no formal education. Good times. And a lot of his music is, I mean, you don't want to...
But it's more than that.
But a lot of the stuff is very, very interesting and very, very kind of nuanced. I have to admit, when I started this project, I only taught it as a seminar at Rutgers. And as I was teaching it, I started to realize that I wasn't actually understanding the song as deeply as I should, and that I would have to explore it more fully in the book. And I was taken aback by some of the things that he did with like what I just described to you from, Adam Raised the Cain. I didn't see that at the beginning. It took a while. It took many readings to understand that. Same thing is true of, for example, the song Jesus Was an Only Son, which isn't explicitly religious, obviously. It's a remarkable, remarkable song in that he takes one of the most famous stories, the Passion narrative.
Yes.
And he takes one of the most famous statements of Jesus being the Son, the only Son, and he rewrites it so that we appreciate the fact that Jesus was the only son of Mary. In other words, the song is written in a way that suddenly you step back and say, everyone says, for he so loved the world, that Jesus was God's only son. But no,
Mary's
you know
only
what?
son.
He was also Mary's only son.
Wow.
And what did that mean? And what was that relationship like? And what did she lose? What was the loss that she felt when Jesus died for her? It was a real death. No, it was permanent.
Deep.
Well, that's what I'm saying. These songs, once you meditate on them, they actually reveal a very, very interesting kind of theological and religious ideas, even though not traditional.
What I'm struggling with is a time limit which Bruce doesn't experience because he has 4-hour shows, which I've been to, and you sit there and go,
right.
And
he's still going.
He's still going, which is part of why people may not take the deepness so seriously, because he's so physical as well.
Right.
Last question, any reaction from Bruce or anyone on his team?
No. I mean, I'd be happy to, but the book is not about Bruce the man. I don't know the man and I don't know him. It's about Bruce, the songwriter and the artist.
Professor, I want to thank you so much. The book is called The Grace of God and the Grace of Man, the Theologies of the great Bruce Springsteen. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Well done.
Thank you.
Stay with us. We'll be right back on One-on-One right after this.
To watch more One-on-One with Steve Adubato, find us online and follow us on social media.
Welcome back to One-on-One. I am pleased to welcome Anna Marie Gewirtz, who is Chief of External Affairs, State Theater, New Jersey. Good to see you. Now, Anna Marie, you were with us as a former staff person of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation a few years back, and now you're doing great things at State Theater. Tell folks what State Theater is all about.
Sure. So the State Theater is an 1,850-seat performance theater in downtown New Brunswick. We have all different kinds of performances, everything from Broadway, classical, comedy, rock, pop, family shows, variety. So there's something for everyone.
So it's so interesting, again, because you know our operation as a not-for-profit television production company, and you've been in the development, external affairs, fundraising operation, and you love the arts. You're an artist yourself. I've had the pleasure of being able to listen to you play the piano. You're exceptional in that regard. You love the arts, always have?
I always have, yeah. I was very lucky. I had music lessons from a very young age. When I was 4, I started taking piano lessons, and then later I took French horn, and I took voice lessons later on. So my parents felt like arts needed to be part of our education, and we were really fortunate. And then later in my teens, I started realizing that not everyone had that same exposure to the arts. So I got a chance to volunteer and do some performances for inner city schools, teaching kids classical and jazz music. I did piano class at the Count Basie Learning Center down in Red Bank, and I had 10 kids in my piano class, which gave me a run for my money. But I felt very strongly that everyone should have access to the arts.
So now at State, the whole idea of arts education, the whole idea of making arts more accessible, how dare I use the term marketable is that, and how challenging is it to raise money around those efforts?
Well, it's a great question. We have our ticket sales at the State Theater only represent about 58% of our operating costs.
That's ticket sales, 58%?
Correct.
What's the rest?
So the rest is we have contributed income, which is about over $3 million a year that we raise, and that helps subsidize and pay for.
Is that corporate sponsors?
Corporate sponsors, foundations, individuals. We have some government money as well. But all of that together helps pay for the education and outreach programs that we do for the community.
Let's talk about, is it relaxed performances? Mm-hmm. What are those?
Sure. So this is a program we started about 2 years ago. It's very near and dear to my heart. My brother is an arts and drama teacher at a special needs school, and we have a lot of friends that have kids on the spectrum. So this is a program for children and adults who are on the spectrum. And we offer a welcoming, warm environment with sensory-friendly performances. We have a calming room with fidget toys and activities if the kids need to take a break. We have we alter the light and sound of the performances so that it creates a stress-free atmosphere for the kids. We have ushers and volunteers who are specially trained to work with kids on the spectrum.
You're talking about the autism spectrum?
Correct. So it offers...
What does it do for them?
Well, it really it does a couple things. We have families and schools that come, and these are often kids that do not have exposure to the arts, so they get a chance to come to a performance. And if, it's a relaxed atmosphere, so if the kid needs to move around, if they make noise, it's okay. And we really, we are very happy to create that atmosphere. And a lot of families have told us maybe they have one child who's on the autism spectrum, but they have other kids who are not. The whole family can come. And we've heard from many, many families that this is a chance that they haven't had in the past, because they now feel like they can be accepted and not looked at as strange.
What would you describe as the audience for the arts today? And is it evolving dramatically?
It is evolving. I think the audiences that a lot of people think of when they think of arts audiences, people think they're in their 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Do they skew not as old as I think?
Yes, it really depends on the genre. So we have our international classical series, and our audiences for that are typically in their 50s, 60s, 70s.
Got it.
But we offer really reduced tickets for those performances, and we are starting to see families. We're starting to see young people coming in on date nights. So that's something that is a big part of our mission, is about creating access.
What about Family Day?
Family Day
is
it's an annual event. We've done this for 9 years now. It's every President's Day. So usually the schools are closed, and most parents are off of work. So they're looking for something to do to get the kids out of the house. And we have typically about 6,000 to 8,000 people that come.
Really?
It's a whole day of free activities for families. We've got arts performances, we have free workshops, music, drama, and dance workshops. We've got arts and crafts and costume characters and balloon animals, you name it.
That's awesome.
Almost all of it's free. The one thing that we do charge for are the main stage performances, and we have 3 of those. And we've had the Big Apple Circus and Jack Hanna with his live animal show. This year we've got Light Wire Theater. We've had Very Hungry Caterpillar. So shows like that are really fun for the whole family, and the tickets for that start at just $15. So
tell us real quick, coming up later this year, we're doing this in early 2017, some great stuff coming up at State Theater. What do you got?
We have amazing Broadway series this year. We've really been expanding our Broadway. So we had Dirty Dancing and Elf the musical, and upcoming we have Pippin, our Tony Award winning production of Pippin, and then the 20th anniversary tour of Rent is coming through.
Is it the 20th anniversary?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Doesn't that make you?
That's awesome.
It's astounding, but yes, this is going to be
doesn't make
really...
you feel very old. You're right. Wow.
So, and then we also have Hedwig and the Angry Inch, and then Annie, the musical.
So the Broadway classics at State Theater of New Jersey, not of State Theater, New Jersey, in beautiful downtown New Brunswick, New Jersey.
Yes.
You've done well,
Thank you.
I want to thank you for contributing to the arts in this state by helping to raise money and awareness and sending the message and marketing and branding. It's great stuff. We appreciate everything you're doing. Well done, okay?
Thank you.
Stay right there. We'll be right back right after this on One on our new set.
To see more One-on-One with Steve Adubato programs, visit us online at steveadubato.org. If you would like to express an opinion, email us at info@caucusnj.org. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/Steve Adubato PhD, and follow us on Twitter at Steve Adubato.
We're at the Seton Hall, Hackensack Meridian School of Medicine, scheduled to open in July of 2018. I'm Steve Adubato. We're talking to researchers, scientists, clinical professionals, folks who are part of this extraordinary operation that's going to have an impact, not just in New Jersey and the region, but in the nation. We're talking to Dr. Robert Korngold, who is in fact the chairman of the research department at Hackensack University Medical Center. Doctor, let me ask you. We're here in this lobby. It is a little ways away from the opening. What do you believe the School of Medicine will mean?
Well, for research, it gives us a great opportunity to develop our research program for Hackensack Meridian in collaboration with the medical school. And we're planning on really forging ahead and developing 3 major institutes here on the campus of the medical school. The first would be regenerative medicine. The second would be related to host defense against disease. That involves immunology, infectious disease, and cancer research. And the third would be an institute devoted for multiple myeloma research. And these are all intended to be very translational. That is that...
What does that mean, translational?
Well, researchers take their discoveries from basic science, and are at the stage where they want to move that into the clinic so that it benefits patients as soon as possible. And obviously that involves working very closely with the clinicians to develop the clinical trials around these discoveries. And it's a difficult part of research and science, but this is where we want to focus.
Doctor, let me ask you this. You have said that innovation will in fact drive medicine for the foreseeable future. What do you mean by that?
Well, we know that's an absolute fact. So all the technology advances recently in genetic sequencing and understanding how disease develops and understanding many different ways of analyzing disease allows physicians to really develop personalized medicine for their patients. That is to really get to the finite cause of what's going on in that individual patient. And that helps them cater to different approaches that treat that patient. And obviously, we're looking for better outcomes.
One of the things that's so interesting, whether it's this particular school of medicine or schools of medicine across the nation, is that there are some folks that say that there needs to be a new paradigm, a new way of teaching students who are going into medicine. So I ask you, the role of research as it relates to the new curriculum to teach the physicians of the future, describe that.
Well, so we would like to see all our medical students of the future to understand clinical research, of how to develop a clinical protocol.
How do you actually do that?
Well, so you do that by example. So we would pair them up with physicians that are very active, research scientists, physicians that do this all the time. And it requires finesse. It requires skills that mentoring that need to be developed. It also requires understanding all the regulatory issues that are involved in conducting a clinical trial. But without that basic experience, it's very daunting for any physician to start a clinical trial on their own. So we want them to come out into the world having this skill, being able to really develop investigator-initiated trials that they want to do for their own patients.
Doctor, you talked about clinical trials. I mean, people hear the term clinical trials all the time watching us right now, and people who are interested and concerned about clinical trials because they want to see positive results for themselves, for their family members and loved ones who are struggling and suffering, and want to see findings, research findings that are positive. What could what we're talking about right now mean in terms of changes as it relates to clinical trials and how they're conducted?
Well, it gives the opportunity for more clinical trials. Clinical trials are the way to test new developments, new approaches, new drugs. Without them, you can't move forward, and you can't move it into the open market for all patients.
Will they take place here?
Yes, absolutely. They take place here at the hospital system. We have a huge clinical service that can enable enough patients to be enrolled in clinical trials. Of course, enrollment is key. But this gives us an opportunity to do this locally.
The kinds of students that you will be recruiting, I'm wondering, given what you're describing now, does the recruit, and we'll talk to the dean as well of the School of Medicine, do you recruit different kinds of students? Do you look for different kinds of students because you're going to need different types of physicians who have some of the same skills, but you're talking about some additional skills?
Right. I mean, the dean may have her own opinion on this. I'm biased on the research side. I would like to see students that have a background in some research already, so that they have an interest in moving forward whenever they have the available time to take part in participating in lab research if they have that time, or certainly associate with the clinical groups to develop clinical research.
Classroom learning, not nearly enough.
Well, classroom learning is changing. I mean, the whole.
What do you mean by that?
The whole curriculum at the medical school, as the dean can, of course, tell you, is going to be problem-based, team learning. So it's not going to be lectures so much anymore. It's going to be working together as a group to solve the problems of the patient.
It's interesting. I know this is going to be a challenging question in a lot of ways, but what about for all the physicians who were trained based on a different medical school paradigm or model? How do they adapt to the kinds of physicians who will be coming out of places like this trained differently?
Well, I don't think that's an issue. I mean, obviously they're in their practice already. They know what they're doing. It just allows new skills, perhaps, for the new students to go into the field and really approach problems and disease in a different way and approach their patients. Obviously, the intent is to help their patients and improve outcomes. So they may be thinking about things more. They may be looking for solutions that may not be obvious to other people.
Finally, how optimistic are you about the future, not just of medical education, but frankly, more importantly, what it means to patients in this region, in this nation?
Oh, I mean, this is a very exciting time. With, as I said, all the technology that's available, we have to incorporate that to really mean something for the patients, and that's where the challenge is. Trying to translate that, trying to get into new approaches, new ways of thinking about disease, and new ways of trying to cure them.
Thank you, Doctor.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the CAUCUS Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. Funding for this edition of One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been provided by Investors Bank, Horizon Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Jersey, Johnson & Johnson, New Jersey Resources, New Jersey Sharing Network, Fedway Associates, and by Gary's Wine and Marketplace. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area. One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been produced in partnership with TriStar Studios.
At Gary's Wine and Marketplace, planning parties is our business. Our associates can work with you to plan the details. We offer an assortment of wine, beer, spirits, cheeses, party platters, accessories, and more. 4 locations in New Jersey and at garyswine.com.